Assalamu alaikum. First of all, thank you for your kind introduction. Thank you for the SSBMT for the invitation and as a speaker. Now, my introduction has already mentioned my background. And thank you for Dr. Hajir for your such a nice and innovative presentation. So my question is, Dr. Askar is not here. So are we no more needed with my background, having statistical analysis and the, I don't know. However, the talk was very informative. Okay, so I'll talk about scientific writing. This is a little bit of traditional way, not like what mentioned by the ChatGPT. So let's go over it. Quickly, I will have just the key points for scientific writing, some tips, some best practices, and the content and how to overcome the scientific writing. So scientific writing is actually the first step while we planning to report a paper prior to submit to the journal is the first step. Why do we need a scientific writing? So scientific writing is important for publication. According to the International Committee of Medical Journals and Editors, it's the ethical duty and responsibility of the researchers to publish. So since the research practices influences the clinical practice and impacts the patients and their outcomes. So it's very important to have the publication. Now, why to publish an article at the personal level for all the staff, for physicians, nurses, or non-medical backgrounds, to have an achievement at the personal level, to advance your career, or at the institute level for the reputation of the institute, at the science level, progression of the science, and at the level of the public. Now, so one of the published paper has reported author's motivation for publication is dissemination. Obviously, once we have the results, we would like to share with the colleagues and with the regulatory bodies. Prior presentation has given another perspective to overcome these barriers. However, up till now, the traditional barriers we are facing is lack of knowledge, lack of expertise, lack of mentors or coaching, lack of support for the novice researchers who are new in the field. Francis Darwin has mentioned that in science, the credit goes to the person who convinces the world, not to the person who has the idea. So it's very important to write the paper and get it published. These are just list of few of documents which you might come across while you write your paper. I'll just go on the left side is the abstract, is the review papers, meta-analysis, case reports, case series, and eventually thesis and the manuscripts. So science communication is actually a process just to translate the complex language into a language which a non-scientific audience can understand. Scientific writing is to write with the precision and clarity and with the simple facts so the audience can understand. So scientific writing is not about us, it's about the readers who read our paper. So a little bit pre-planning before we do the scientific writing. Elsevier has published group of papers. It's around 11 to 12 papers, series of papers. They will be helpful in the scientific writing. A good writing can not save your bad ideas. However, the bad writing definitely will kill the good ideas. Now, I'm not sure about these ChatGPT things. Will it change all my slides, what I'm presenting? So I'm a little bit stumbled. Okay, now some of the prerequisites of writing. So please, before we start writing, have a literature search, update your search. One of the key things I have come across during my expertise and experience is empty tables and the figures. So to draft the figures and the tables even before you start writing, it will give you a hint. What paper would you like to report? What results you are reporting? Selection of the journal is also very important at the initial and early stages due to the allowed word count. I'm not sure if ChatGPT will also help us in selecting of the journal and the limited of the count of the words. Now, before we start writing, we need to decide who is our target audience. Primary audience is our colleagues. Secondary audience, is it the regulatory bodies, SFDA, or funding bodies to whom we are reporting. So writing style is something to say as clearly, and this is the only secret of style. So I'll just touch the traditional style of writing. So I'm still really stumbled because of the ChatGPT has distracted my, oh yeah, it's totally distracted. I should have been the first opening speaker.
Don't worry,
Okay, so before I go further, I want to know the experience of the audience. So what do you think of scientific writing? Have you tried? Are you struggling? Are you new or something? How many people are new in scientific writing? So at least I know what I'm talking about. Okay. So the components of scientific writing. So I'll just touch quickly about the structure, the format, the content. So let's go through it. So simple paragraphs, logical flow of the paragraphs. The paragraphs should give one point, opening statement, expand the statement, and the closing statement. So these are the paragraphs. Use of active tense versus passive voice. Past tenses is for the results. So these are the just quick summary. This is one of the slides I came across from the BMJ. And if you can kindly take a look what's written over here. The attempt made by the female bovine adult to discontinuously traverse the Earth's lunar body. How difficult is the statement even to read or understand? So you can have simply written the cow jumped over the moon. So this is by one of the presentation from the BMJ. So please use simple language, active voice. Try to summarize so we can take care of the word count. Instead of using 3-4 sentences, they can be easily summarized. So we need to start plan early, have a first draft, take the feedback from our colleagues, expertise, people on board, our authors, rearrange and have a final draft. This is the Equator Network. I just want to share that these are the guidelines. These are very helpful while we draft our paper. If it's a clinical trial, please use the CONCERT guidelines. If it's the observational study, so we use these STROBE guidelines. So the most common elements of research articles we already mentioned is introduction, method, research, results, and discussion. However, I will start with the abstract. Now, question I have for the audience, can we have a different structure apart from this regular traditional structure? Anybody has experienced? So we start with introduction, method, results, and discussion. Have you come across with the twisted one? Anybody? Okay, so this is scientific reports, a journal. This is a published paper, structure-based multi-targeted molecular docking analysis for selected against breast cancer, and they have this structure. So they started with the introduction, and they have the results. They went to discussion, and then the methods is the last. So it is possible to have a different structure and style depending on the journal and the nature of the reporting. So at the planning stage, we need to decide on who are the authors on board. And I'm sure ChatGPT cannot decide for you that, who will be the authors on board with you for that particular paper. After completion of the project, would you like to write, or would you like to write while the project is ongoing? Who will be the target audience? So we usually recommend to start writing with the methods. This is considered to be a little bit easier compared to other sections. A little bit about introduction. So if your introduction is written well, it can sell your project, sell your idea. So we start with a broader picture. It's usually called inverted funnel, and then we narrow it down. So introduction is usually around 15% of the total word count from the paper. Please do not forget to write these, cite the systematic reviews if you're reporting a clinical trial. So we start with the global picture, what's internationally done, what is known about the topic you are interested, what are the gaps internationally. You go to the local or regional areas, define the gap, and then you go to the importance of your paper. What is the problem statement? So a little bit about citation and references. So when you write the statements, so we cite a paper to avoid the plagiarism and give the credit to the authors. So this is a citation, and the reference goes to the reference. Now, however, I just want to mention here the citation style. So you can have author prominent citation style, you can have information prominent citation style. Both are fine, acceptable. It depends on the reporting. You can choose any of these. Little bit about the type of the citation. So primary citation, which is already available in the literature. Let's take an example. Complete blood count is a widely used lab test. This is a primary citation. We have the reference. Now, secondary or double citation, if the original paper is there, they have cited, but we don't know the actual reference for this. So in this scenario, we're gonna take the reference paper will be James, not this one. So this is the double citation or secondary citation. Little bit about the methods. Methods are easiest to write for any paper. Why? Because you already have methods in your protocol written. You can pull some similar articles. It will also give you a hint how to write your paper. Methods are very important section for reproducibility purposes. So if somebody else wants to replicate the study, they should be able to do that. So please do not forget all the elements of the methods: type of the study, duration, where it was conducted, what was the tool used, what was the sample size. So these are all the elements we should mention in the method section, including the statistical analysis, the techniques used, how the missing data was handled, especially if it's a clinical trial, the primary, secondary subgroup analysis, and what was the software used. When we report the sample size, these are the 5 elements. So what was the primary outcome on which the sample size was based? Type 1 error, type 2 error, precision, and standard deviation for continuous outcome. These are the required elements for the sample size. Coming to the results, when we write the results, so results are the mirror image of the methods. For each method, we should have a result. So it depends whether you want to have a textual reporting or non-textual. Preferably is non-textual and graphical display. However, you can also have some summary in a textual form. So all the primary, subgroup analysis, secondary analysis should be in the results. When we report the categorical data, we should have a number and a percentage. Please do not forget numerator, denominators, and the 95% confidence intervals. Also specify if the reported percentage is a row percent or a column percent. For continuous data, we report the mean and standard deviation. However, if your data is not normally distributed, that's the time we report the median and interquartile range. We round the number, and the best practice to have a 2 decimal points. For p-value, we report the 3 decimal points. The tables should be a standalone document. That's how we report the table. We should have a title. We should mention the sample size, and we should have a footnote for any definitions and the statistical tests we have used. Selection of the figures is also tricky, and we need to specify what was the type of the figure, what's the purpose of the figure. We should have a title. What is the type? Is most commonly I have come across is the TIFF is the type of the figure. The colors are also important when we select the figure. So this is one of the figures we have published. All right, this is the legend of the figure. I'll just explain a little bit about it. So here a list of all the patients who had the borderline first therapy. Everybody received steroids till this point, both groups. After this point, they were split. So one group have received surgery and the other one has received the medication. So the figures are standalone document and self-explanatory. So if you go through in this legend, and it explains at each observation what was the sample size, and this is the explanation of the figure. So that's how the figures should look like. Coming to the discussion. Discussion is summary of the main findings, where we are comparing with the prior publication the pros or cons or agreement or disagreements, the limitations, future implication, and conclusions. So usually we write it similarity to other studies or differences from other studies. And these are some of the words we should use while we are describing the discussion. Limitation section can be around 1 to 2 paragraphs. It adds the flaws of the study, what we could not do, and what are the reasons of not doing those aspects. Most common aspects, maybe sample size was not enough, incomplete follow-up, retrospective design, or missing data. These are most common limitations of any study. Title is one of a very important element of a paper. Why? Because databases are usually searched based on the title. And based on the title, the attention is grabbed for the paper. So make sure that your title is catchy. These are the elements of a title, especially if it's a clinical trial report. So mention the population, comparator, what intervention was used, what was the outcome, and what is the study design. We should mention that it was a randomized control trial or if it's an observational study. For the clinical trials, we can also report in the title the study acronyms. Abstract is also one of a standalone document. Based on the abstract, either the readers will read the whole paper, or they decide not to read, or they just read the abstract. Abstract can be structured, unstructured. The word count depends on the journal, but usually around between 200 to 350. This is one of the notes from the BMJ. Please get your abstract right, because we may use it alone to assess your paper. So abstract is one of the key elements of a paper. References, there are a list of sources available, softwares, they are open source or a paid one. You can use any of these, but make sure you are not doing it manually, you're choosing one of these. For me personally, I use Mendeley. It's quite user-friendly. Keywords for a paper, these are actually labels of your manuscript. So these are mandatory to identify for correct indexing. Usually a journal allows you around 5 to 6 keywords. Please also do not forget the acknowledgements for the people who could not be author, but they have supported the study, especially funders or proofreaders. Probably we'll take the proofreaders later on. Also mention the conflict of interest. If you have any personal or financial or political conflict of interest, this should be reported after the discussion section. So take home message is no to plagiarism, please no to predatory conferences, don't forget the copyrights, submit to the right journal and submit to the one journal at a time. Please pay attention to the structure and the style. Now I haven't touched the details about the submission, selection of the journals and all these, because it's going to take longer time. For that, you can stay tuned and join us on our upcoming workshop on 31st of May, in which we're going to talk the details about that. So that's it. Thank you.